Last summer was when everything changed for me. I'd been a park ranger for a few years, so I thought I knew the woods well. I loved the wild. I spent countless nights out there, keeping the park safe. But this one night was different. I set out on my patrol as the sun dipped behind the trees. It was quiet, really quiet. I could hear the crickets, but their sound felt off, like they were trying to tell me something I didn't understand. I walked the familiar path with my flashlight cutting through the dark. The air felt thick, like a storm was coming. Then I stumbled upon something strange. Carcass lay just off the trail. First I thought it was a deer, but something about it wasn't right. I stepped closer, and I could see extra limbs sticking out. It had markings on its skin, ones I'd never seen. I stared at it, feeling uneasy. Maybe it was just a freak accident of nature. I backed away, but the discomfort lingered. Over the next few weeks, I saw more strange things. There were massive tracks, huge footprints that looked like they could change shape. The animals around the park started acting funny. Squirrels stared at me like they were judging me. Birds stopped singing. At night, when I was alone, I thought I heard whispers through the trees. The whole forest felt like it was watching me. Campers came in and out, and I began to hear strange stories. They talked about a creature that looked like a deer but moved too fast. One kid said it was not quite right. I thought they were imagining things. But I started keeping a journal, writing down everything I found and felt. I felt drawn to it. One night during a chilling patrol, my heart was racing. I kept looking over my shoulder. It was past midnight, and the air bit cold against my skin. Out of nowhere, I saw something move. There it was, standing still, its glowing eyes fixed on me. I tried to shout, but my voice caught. It just stood there, like it was waiting for me to make a move. Then it darted into the bushes. My heart pounded like a drum. I was filled with terror and curiosity. I wanted to follow, but I hesitated. I heard rustling to my left. I swung my flashlight toward the sound. "Hello?" I called out, but nobody answered. My voice faded into the night air. I felt I wasn't alone. The forest felt heavy with something I couldn't name. It was like it knew me, knew what I didn't want to face. Then I heard a whisper, "Come find me." I froze. Was it the wind or something else? Felt deeply wrong. I still think about that summer. I wonder if the not deer was just the start of something much worse. I can still hear those whispers, lurking in the shadows of my mind, hiding in the depths of the trees. The next morning I woke up still shaken. I couldn't shake the image of those glowing eyes. I replayed the encounter in my head. The rush of fear, the way it seemed to know me. I decided to go to the ranger station, hoping maybe talking it over with someone would help. Val, my partner, was already there. She was organizing equipment, keeping busy. I watched her for a moment, debating how to start. "Did you hear anything strange last night?" I asked cautiously. Val looked up, her brow furrowing. "Strange how?" I hesitated, not wanting to sound crazy. "Like whispers in the woods? Or anything unusual?" She shook her head. "Not last night, but the campers have been saying weird stuff lately. Something about a creature stalking them at night. You know how it goes. Campfire stories." "Yeah, but it feels more than just stories." I glanced out the window, shivers creeping down my spine. "I can feel something out there." "Come on, it's just nerves," she said, dismissing it with a laugh. "We've had busy summers before. You're overthinking it." Maybe I was. But I couldn't ignore those deep, primal instincts. I needed to be sure, so I suggested we check the carcass I had found. Maybe it would have answers. Reluctantly, Val agreed as we walked back to the spot. The sun was shining bright, cutting through the trees in sharp beams. I felt jittery, like I was waiting for a storm. I led the way, half expecting to find the carcass gone. But as we turned the last bend, there it was. And it was worse than before. The body lay strewn about, as if something had torn it apart. Bones and flesh were scattered, mixed with dirt and leaves. "Oh God," Val murmured. I didn't say anything. My heart sank. I'd come here looking for answers, but all I found was another layer of horror. I crouched down, squinting to make sense of the mess. The markings were clearer now. They looked almost like symbols, scratching and twisting like a language I didn't understand. "What is all this?" Val asked, her voice a mix of disgust and dread. Before I could answer, I heard it. A soft rustling in the brush, almost like the sound of something shifting. My stomach dropped. I nodded toward the sound. "Did you hear that?" She nodded, her eyes wide. We stood in silence, listening. Then I felt it again. The forest felt closer, as if the trees were leaning in to listen. "Let us go." Val's voice trembled slightly, but something pulled at me to stay. "No, I want to see." That S when I saw it. A dark figure, blending into the shadows, its outline shifting. It looked back at me for just a moment before darting into the deeper woods. "Did you see that?" I shouted, turning to Val, but she was already backing away, face pale. "It's time to leave." I hesitated, wanting to follow, but fear paralyzed me. What was it? The whispers returned in my mind. "Come find me." Then everything went dark. The stillness of the woods swallowed me whole, and I found myself alone, searching without knowing what I was even looking for. I blinked and suddenly, I was back in the clearing. The sun beamed down, but it felt strangely cold. Val was gone. Panic set in, and I called her name, but the trees swallowed my voice whole. "Val?" Nothing. Just silence, thick and suffocating. I forced myself to move, to think. The dark figure had vanished, but the chilling sensation lingered. I stumbled back towards the direction we had come, but something held me back. I had to find out what I had seen. The markings on the ground caught my attention again. I crouched down, brushing away leaves, trying to decipher the symbols. They felt familiar, like something ancient. I traced one of the lines with my finger, and a shiver coursed through me. It was almost as if the ground pulsed beneath my touch. Then I heard it again, the rustling. Closer this time. Morbid curiosity drew me back toward the sound. I crept forward, heart racing, each crunch of the leaves beneath my feet echoing in the stillness. "Val?" I whispered. Still no answer. Just the whisper of the wind, or maybe it was the whispers I'd been trying to escape. I moved deeper into the shadows between the trees. The air thickened, heavy with something unnatural. As I navigated through the foliage, I stumbled upon a small clearing. Bones. More of them, scattered like forgotten toys. Small animals, deformed and twisted. My stomach churned. A low growl rumbled from the darkness, sending ice through my veins. I spun around, scanning the trees. The growling came again, but it sounded so much closer now. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. That S when I saw her. Val. She emerged from the shadows, but something was off. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't quite herself. "Val, where have you been?" I asked, relief flooding through me, but the look on her face made my blood run cold. "Run," she hissed, pointing back towards the path we had come from. "Why? What's wrong? Just run. It's not safe here," she urged again, voice trembling. In that moment, I heard the growl again, louder this time, and it sent a wave of dread through me. I turned, ready to flee, but Val didn't move. "Val, come on." She stood there, staring into the trees like she was entranced. Something was drawing her in, like she was being called by that sinister whisper. I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the way we came. "We need to go." Without warning, something lunged from the shadows. It was massive, dark, and impossibly fast. I could see those glowing eyes again, locked onto us. The ground beneath us shuddered as it charged, and Val's grip on me tightened. "Let go of me," she screamed, but the fear in her voice told me she was already losing herself. I turned to run, pulling her with me, but in that split second, I realized whatever that thing was, it was after Val and it wasn't gonna stop. We bolted back into the thick of the trees, but the sound of footsteps followed us. More growls joined the first, surrounding us. The forest seemed alive, and it was hungry. As we raced through the woods, I glanced back, hoping against hope we could escape. But as I did, there was only darkness behind us. The growls grew louder, invigorating a primal fear inside me. We were not alone anymore. I gripped Val's hand tighter, determined to lead us both away. But as I stumbled forward, my foot caught on a root. I lost my balance and fell, dragging Val down with me. The world spun, and suddenly, all I could hear were those whispers, louder now, filling the air around us. Then everything faded into a blur. All I knew was that I had to get us out. I came to, disoriented. The whispers faded, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. I blinked against the dim light filtering through the leaves. Val was still beside me, staring blankly into the underbrush. My heart raced, and a wave of confusion washed over me. Val, I said, shaking her gently, we need to go, now. She blinked, as if waking from a dream, but her expression was blank. I could see the fear flickering in her eyes, but it was overshadowed by something else, something darker. What happened? I asked, my voice trembling. I don't know, she murmured. I felt drawn to it. The shadows. As we struggled to our feet, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A flash of something in the thicket. My breath caught in my throat. I peered closer, but it vanished like smoke. Let us move, I said, tugging on her arm. We scrambled to the edge of the clearing, but the low growl echoed around us. It was closer now, stalking us like prey. I could feel the ground tremble again, each deep growl sending a jolt of fear deep into my chest. Which way? Val whispered, her voice trembling more than before. I looked around, trying to focus. Then I spotted the remnants of that strange symbol etched into the earth. It was right where we had fallen. Curiosity replaced fear, and I bent down instinctively. What are you doing? Val asked, panic rising in her voice. I'm trying to remember, I said, tracing a finger along the carved lines. They felt warm now, alive. The growl came again, closer still, and I stood up abruptly, the urgency hitting me like a wave. We need to go. But before I could pull her away, Val froze. Out of nowhere, she whispered, it's coming. The shadows deepened as if thickening to form a shape. The trees swayed, bending as something powerful approached. Couldn't he breathe? My instincts kicked in, urging me to push Val back. We can't stay here, I shouted. But then I saw it. The source of the growls. It emerged from the trees, a distorted version of a deer. Its limbs were elongated. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and where its mouth should have been, nothing but a wide, gaping void. Run! I screamed once more. This time Val didn't hesitate. She took off in the opposite direction, and I followed closely behind, adrenaline driving my every step. The creature let out a shriek that shattered the air, reverberating deep within my chest. I didn't dare look back. We tore through the forest, the trail of twisted branches and fallen leaves melding beneath our frantic pace. Each sound behind us felt like a reminder of the nightmare we were escaping. Then I saw the path ahead, the one we had come from. Relief surged through me, but just as quickly as it came, a shadow darted past my periphery. I felt a rush of cold air, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Val gasped and stopped dead, eyes wide again, as she turned to see what stood behind us. I grabbed her hand, pulling her away from the edge where the shadows danced, but she lingered, momentarily entranced by the darkness. Val, I yelled, desperation creeping into my voice. That S when everything shifted. A deafening crash broke the tension, and I instinctively shielded her as branches fell around us. We were being closed in on. The growls were now joined with grunts and another sound, a warped bark. I felt my heart drop as I realized we were surrounded. My mind raced, searching for an escape, but all I could see were those glowing eyes watching us from every direction. Help! Val cried out. Before I could respond, everything went black. Couldn't hear. Just a weightless void, and the pulsing whispers returned, echoing around us. Something was pulling at the edges of my consciousness, and just before I succumbed to the darkness, I heard the last thing I expected. Join us! I gasped, jolting awake. The sudden shift back into reality left me disoriented and panting. I was lying on an uneven leaf-strewn floor, the scent of damp earth and decay filling my senses. Panic surged through my veins as I quickly sat up, scanning my surroundings. We were no longer in the clearing. The trees loomed overhead, gnarled and twisted, their branches jutting out like claws. A muffled rustling echoed in the distance, followed by a series of low growls that sent a shiver down my spine. I closed my eyes, willing the fear to settle as I searched for Val. She was a few feet away, slumped against a tree, eyes wide, as if trapped in some sort of trance. "Val," I called, my voice hoarse. She didn't respond. I moved closer, feeling dread rise with every step. Her gaze was fixed on something deeper in the shadows, a shimmering light flickering as if it was calling to her. "Get away from there," I shouted, my voice breaking, but it was too late. As I reached for her arm, the growls intensified, reverberating through the trees. A figure emerged from the shadows, a mass of darkness twisting into form. It was the creature, the not deer. Its eyes pierced through the gloom, glowing like embers. The presence was overwhelming, and I stumbled back, grasping Val's wrist to pull her away. "Snap out of it," I shouted, shaking her gently. She blinked rapidly, as if waking from a dream. What happened?" Her voice was shaky. "No time. We need to move." I pulled her upright and we turned to flee. But the path we had come from was gone, swallowed by the forest. The realization hit hard, there was no way back. The creature advanced, its limbs shifting, elongating with each step. A guttural whisper slithered through the trees, merging with the growls. "Join us," it hissed again. I felt a chill race down my spine. It was the same voice I heard before everything went dark. We ran, dodging branches and leaping over roots. My heart hammered in my chest. I didn't know where we were going, but staying still meant certain doom. The forest felt alive, urging us deeper into its heart. Then, as we broke through a thicket, we found ourselves in a clearing, somewhat different from the last. In the center stood something that made me halt, a massive stone altar, covered in strange symbols etched into its surface. Some of those symbols looked eerily familiar, the same warm lines I had traced before. "Look," Val pointed, her voice trembling. "The symbols, they're not just random." As I stepped closer, a strange energy pulsed through me, resonating with the darkness that surrounded us. I felt a connection, a link to something larger than ourselves. But that was overshadowed by the sound of the growls drawing nearer. "We can't stay here," I warned, pulling Val away from the altar. Just as we turned to leave, the ground trembled. The not deer emerged again, larger and more grotesque than before. It raised its head, revealing the gaping void where its mouth should have been. "This way," Val screamed, and we darted toward the only path that was still visible, branches scratching at our skin as we ran. I didn't look back. I could only focus on the sound of our own frantic footsteps and the heart-stopping shrieks that chased us. But as we plunged deeper into the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that the symbols had unlocked something, and the not deer had taken notice. Ahead, the trees parted again, and the breath caught in my throat. There was no way out in sight, only a darker tunnel formed by twisted branches. I bit my lip, dread pooling in my stomach. "Do you think we can?" Val started, but her voice faded as the growls grew louder. I hesitated, realizing the forest was truly alive with dark intentions. This was just the beginning. We charged into the dark tunnel, branches whipping past us like angry spirits. The growls behind us morphed into something more sinister, a chorus of hellish voices layered over each other, chanting words I couldn't understand. It felt as if the forest were feeding on our fear, the trees closing in, tightening their grip. "Keep running," I urged Val, glancing back just once. The not deer was right behind us, its grotesque form slipping effortlessly through the underbrush. I forced myself to turn away, pushing ahead into the claustrophobic hallway of twisted wood. The heavy darkness swallowed us, and I felt my heart race faster. We stumbled deeper, breathless and terrified. My mind raced. What had the altar meant? What were those symbols? I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they held some answer. But not here, Not now. Suddenly, the ground beneath us felt uneven. I looked down and saw it treacherous stones emerging from the soil, slick with moisture. Val nearly fell when her foot slipped, but I grabbed her arm just in time. "Watch your step," I shouted, pulling her closer. Just ahead, the tunnel opened up into a much larger cavern filled with a dim, eerie glow. A thick mist curled around the edges, making it difficult to see clearly. However, the air felt charged, brimming with something palpable. I took a cautious step forward, holding Val back for a moment. "Do you see that?" I whispered, pointing to what appeared to be shadows dancing at the far end of the cavern. They twisted and moved in ways that defied logic, flickering like flames but with an unnatural fluidity. I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling. "Should we go further?" Before I could respond, the growls erupted again, reverberating off the stone walls. They were closer now, echoing through the cavern and intensifying my growing sense of dread. We couldn't stay here, but the thought of retreating back into the tunnel felt just as dangerous. Then I noticed something in the center of the cave, a small pile of stones arranged in a delicate circle. It almost felt like a shrine. I moved closer, compelled by an overpowering curiosity even as every instinct screamed at me to keep moving. The symbols from the altar were carved here too, etched into the stones just as they were before. "Do you think this means something? Like a warning?" Val asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I replied, my eyes scanning the circle. "But it feels important." As I reached out to touch the stones, a sudden burst of wind rushed through the cave, chilling us to the bone. The shadows flickered wildly, and I felt a shock ripple through me, as if the stones were alive. I withdrew my hand, fear coursing through my body. "Maybe we should," I started, but before I could finish, the knot deer burst into the cave, its eyes burning, hungry for us. The shadows behind it twisted, as if dancing to its will. "Run!" I yelled. We spun around, scrambling back towards the tunnel, the growls morphing into manic laughter, echoing in the darkness. But just as we reached the entrance, the ground shook beneath us. The shadows surged forward, forming a wall that blocked our escape. This was no longer just a desperate chase. We had just walked into its lair. "Val, what do we do?" My voice trembled as I felt the rush of hopelessness invade my mind. When I saw it, a glimmer of light beyond the shadows, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. It beckoned. "Follow me," I shouted, taking Val's hand. With no way back, we had to trust whatever the light was. I pushed forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. We plunged into the light, a strange warmth enveloping us despite the fear clawing at my insides. It felt like stepping into a different world, where the air buzzed with energy and the shadows hesitated, as if unsure of their power here. Val and I ran together, our footsteps echoing against the cavern walls. As we neared the light, details sharp enough to cut through the dimness emerged. It was a massive crystal, thrusting upward from the ground like a splintered tooth from the earth. It glowed with an otherworldly radiance, changing colors in a slow dance from deep indigo to bright emerald. I felt an inexplicable pull toward it, a beckoning that was hard to resist. "Is that?" Val whispered, her voice awash with wonder. She had stopped, gazing at the crystal as if it held the answers we sought. I hesitated for a moment, fear still drumming in my chest, but the tension of our flight weighed heavy on my mind. We couldn't remain in the shadows, especially not with the knot deer lurking nearby. I started, but a jarring screech cut through the air, an unearthly sound that clawed at my sanity. It was the knot deer, its howl echoing like a mad symphony, and I felt my skin crawl. Whatever was behind us would not relent. We hurried toward the crystal, and I could see now that it wasn't just a stone. Woven around it were threads of luminescent fibers, glimmering and pulsating. It felt like a trap and a sanctuary all at once. "Don't touch it," Val cried, but my instinct was to reach out. I couldn't explain why, but some force urged me closer. My fingers brushed against the crystal's smooth surface, and a flood of images crashed into my mind, visions of the forest, the altar, and symbols whirling around like leaves in a whirlwind. "Do you see it?" I gasped, seeing the not deer through strange eyes, reeling in an old memory of the forest before everything changed. I see it, Val replied, her breath hitching as the images twisted into dark caricatures of our former lives. But what does it mean? Suddenly the cave trembled. The shadows rumbled like angry spirits, and the not deer's figure loomed ever closer at the edge of the light. Its eyes burned with unnatural hunger, and I felt dread coil tighter around us. Stand back, I shouted, trying to shield her as I took another breath, gathering courage. The glow of the crystal brightened, and for a fleeting moment, I sensed the shadows recoil, as if they feared the light. Then, everything shifted. A surge of energy blasted from the crystal. It expanded outward in a brilliant wave, illuminating the shadows. I gasped as I saw figures within them, lost souls, twisted and forlorn, bound to the darkness. A voice, haunting and echoing, seeped into my mind, warning of the forest's past sins. Before I could grasp the meaning, the crystal pulsed again. This time, the shadows retaliated, crashing forward with the force of a tempest. I looked at Val, panic-stricken. Run! I yelled, as the shadows closed in, desperate to consume everything in their path. As we turned to flee, a sudden sharp pain struck my arm. I glanced down to see one of the twisted shadows reach out, its form grasping for us. Fear twisted my gut as I clung to Val, dragging her along, desperate for an escape. But as we broke away, we discovered there was nowhere left to run. Then, through the chaos, the voice surged back, barely audible above the din. Unravel the truth or be forever lost. Heart pounding, I realized we were caught in a nightmare much larger than us. What were we up against? And what truth had the forest buried deep within its shadows? I backed away from the crystal, heart racing as Val and I stumbled through the chaos. We were still inside the cavern, but the light from the crystal felt like a fragile barrier against the overwhelming dark. The shadows surged around us, alive with a malevolence that made my skin prickle. I could hardly breathe. Think, I urged, trying to hold on to sanity. We need a plan. Val's eyes darted around, searching for any chance of escape. It doesn't look good. We can't go back, and there's nowhere else to go. That realization hit me hard. We were trapped in this swirling mass of darkness with the not deer lurking close by, its screech still echoing in my ears. I squeezed Val's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her palm against the creeping chill of our surroundings. Maybe we can use the crystal? I suggested, though I wasn't sure how. The urge to touch it again pulled at me, but I remembered Val's warning. If it pushes back the shadows, we might be able to find out what it wants. There has to be something here, Val snapped, desperation creeping into her voice. Something we can use. Before I could respond, the shadows lunged forward, writhing as they took shape. I gasped as several figures materialized, distorted and anguished, their mouths open in silent screams. They were lost souls from the forest, forever trapped inside, becoming more twisted by the moment. Not them, Val whimpered, shaking her head. What do they want? I blinked hard, trying to understand. They must be trying to warn us. Maybe they want us to remember something. Suddenly, a memory flared in my mind: the forest, the altar, the rituals whispered around the campfire last summer. Tales of the not deer crafted from stories long buried beneath the ground and wrapped in legends. I staggered back as a wave of understanding washed over me. Val, the stories. What if the not deer is tied to the truth we uncovered? But how? She looked around, anxiety etched across her features. This isn't like the stories. This is real, and it wants us. The shadows seemed to pulse in response, closing in tighter around us. I thought of the crystal once more, its colors shifting like a heartbeat. We have to confront the truth. In that moment I decided. On 3 I said, my voice steadying. We'll reach for the crystal together. 1, 2, 3. We lunged forward, our hands meeting the smooth surface of the crystal. A jolt of energy surged through us, and the visions returned faster, more intense. The not deer emerged amidst memories of betrayal and loss, of a sacrifice that had bound the forest in darkness. "That's it," Val shouted, her eyes wide as connections formed. "It was a pact. We need to break it." But the shadows roared back, clawing at us with unnatural speed, desperate to pull us away. "We can't hold it much longer," I cried, feeling the weight of their darkness close in once again. "Unravel it," Val yelled, her voice barely breaking through the chaos. "Or we'll be lost forever." When I saw it, a flicker of hope in the chaos. A symbol etched into the crystal's surface, illuminated by the light it emitted. "If this is tied to the truth, we have to reveal it." With a surge of adrenaline, I pressed my fingers harder against the crystal, urging it to show us the way. And for the briefest moment, the world around us went silent. Then everything went dark. I was falling, not through the air, but through a thick, suffocating curtain of darkness. It wrapped around me, chilling my bones and numbing my senses. Felt as if I was submerged in deep water, unable to swim back up. Just when despair threatened to swallow me whole, a bright light flickered back into life. I blinked, disoriented, and found myself back in the cavern. The crystal loomed before me, pulsating with an urgent energy. Val was beside me, her face pale and eyes wide, as if she'd seen something I hadn't. "What just happened?" I rasped, my voice shaky. I needed to gather my thoughts, but they felt scattered like leaves on the wind. Val shook her head slowly. I think we tapped into something. But the shadows still want us. We need to figure this out." The figures of the lost souls hovered at the edges of the light, still wailing silently. They were the very embodiment of torment, their faces contorted in agony. My heart raced. What if they were sacrificed? What if the not deer wasn't just a monster, but a part of them too? Val hesitated, her eyes darting back to the shadows. "Then we might find ourselves on the wrong side of a deal made long ago." Just as we contemplated our predicament, the shadows erupted with a screech that split the air. The not deer revealed itself, a monstrous silhouette against the dying light of the crystal. Panic surged through me. "Stand back," I shouted, but couldn't help but take a step forward. The resonance of the crystal, warm beneath my fingertips, drew me closer. "If the pact is tied to this, then we need to break it." "Are you crazy?" Val yelled, eyes wide with disbelief. "What if it retaliates?" Before I could answer, the not deer launched itself at us, its antlers glinting like daggers in the half-light. I instinctively reached for the crystal again, hoping its power would protect us. "Touch it," I urged Val, feeling the air thicken with dread. We both pressed our palms against the surface, and this time shimmering images flooded our minds. The history of the woods unraveled before us. A village long gone. A ceremony that spilled blood upon the altar. The birth of the not deer as an entity born from desperation and sorrow. Each image was sharper than the last, pulling me into the depths of its significance and the terrible secret behind it. In that moment of clarity, I understood. Val, it's bound to those who created it. The pact isn't just about a creature. It's about what they lost. We need to reverse that, or they'll always be trapped. But even as I spoke, I felt the shadows closing in again, their tendrils wrapping tightly around our ankles. The not deer emitted a low growl, a sound that vibrated through the cavern and sent chills deep into my core. Then, an unexpected crash echoed behind us, a shattering sound unlike anything I'd heard before. The crystal flickered. My breath hitched. Val's eyes widened. Something's wrong. I whipped around, feeling a mix of dread and urgency. What was that? As the shadows pulsed, ready to strike, I realized one truth. Whatever had broken, it wasn't just the crystal. Felt like our only chance was slipping away. And then, from the depths of the darkness, I saw movement. Something was emerging. Before I could yell a warning, the ground lurched beneath us. Everything went chaotic again, but this time we weren't alone. I don't know how long I was lost in the dark. One moment, Val and I were pressed against the glowing crystal, our hearts racing, and the next, we were flung apart, a shockwave rippling through the air, disorienting me. I tumbled to the ground as the cavern shook, massive stones crashing around us, and the not-dear's spine-tingling growl echoed louder than ever, reverberating right down to my bones. When the dust settled, the crystal still glowed, illuminating the shadows that twisted and morphed just beyond its light. I blinked, grappling with opposing instincts. Fear made me want to flee, and the crystal's warmth seemed to beckon me forward. Beyond the pulsing light, Val was on her feet again, her expression a mix of confusion and determination. "We need to keep trying," she shouted, urgency propelling her forward where I hesitated. The sheer will surging through us pulled us back together. We both knew somehow that we were close to unraveling the truth hidden in these shadows. If the not-dear was tied to the forest's lore, perhaps confronting the history was our only chance of survival. "We have to break the pact," Val cried, tightening her grip around the crystal. Just then, a howl ripped through the air, a shrill sound that shattered the cavern's stillness. It was more than a sound. It was a visceral threat. The shadows writhed closer, forming grotesque faces, reflections of anguish, anger, and desperation. Those who had been claimed. "It remembers," I murmured, dread creeping in as I looked back at the massive darkness. "Then we remember too," Val stated fiercely, stepping toward the crystalline heart. "Let us do this." Her voice wavered, but I could see the fire in her eyes, a willpower that struck through the fear clouding my thoughts. Together, we both pressed our palms against the crystal's cold surface. Even as the shadows crept in closer, their growls morphed into a cacophony of whispers clawing at our minds. In that instant, a flood of memories surged through me, visions clearer than ever before. The village, bound to the altar in sacrifice. The desperation of forgotten villagers who created a dark guardian to protect what they lost, and the not-dear's tragic birth was a violent culmination of their grief, its existence anchored in sorrow. They wanted to protect their home, I gasped, panting as the memories pushed forward. But it turned against them. They created it, and now it craves more. Val's eyes widened with understanding, and I could see her heart racing alongside mine. "We need to forgive them," she stated firmly, the clarity breaking through our panic. "They were scared, just like us." I nodded, remembering the flickers of anger in those lost souls' faces. This cycle won't end until we acknowledge their pain. In that moment, embers of courage ignited inside me, urging me to confront my fear and help those trapped souls. "We forgive you," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "We acknowledge your suffering. You sought power, but it trapped you." The shadows hesitated as we continued. "Let go of the past. You can be free." A moment of tension gripped the cave. The not-dear hesitated for the first time, its growls faltering as the darkness flickered uneasily around us. The figures surrounding me shifted, their faces still twisted in torment, but their movements slowed, as if the weight of guilt began to lift from their shoulders. "Let them go," Val called out, her voice steady. "You don't need this anger. You can find peace." The shadows recoiled, shivering, as if forced to confront the truth they had long avoided. They danced erratically, an eerie wail erupting from the void, the sound of a long-held anguish now free to swirl in the air. The not-dear buckled, its body shifting and convulsing in response to the combined power of our words. It was unraveling. I took a step further. "Your legacy doesn't have to end here. You can change. You can be more than fear." With that, I pressed my palm firmly against the crystal once more, feeling its pulsating energy thrumming beneath my skin. I didn't know if our words would be enough, but I could feel the power growing within us. Val joined me, her determination forming a barrier. The light intensified, casting over the cavern as we repeated our message, urging the lost souls toward freedom. Then came a deafening roar from the not-dear. It surged forward, darkness spilling from its twisted form. The growl felt like the wind was stolen from my lungs, an echo of the suffering it held. "You cannot sever what binds me," it wailed, voice layered with rage. But as the shadows converged toward us, I summoned all my resolve, emboldened by Val's unwavering presence. "We do not relent," I shouted, the words resonating like a spell. "We forgive you." You don't have to cling to this anger, find the light. A blinding white flash erupted within the cavern, drowning out the ever-encroaching darkness. A searing wave tore through, chaos erupting as the shadows ruptured around us. I felt light enveloping me, while the anguished cries of the lost souls twisted into screams of liberation. And then, just like that, silence followed that I blinked against the brightness, the cavern shifting around me. The air was lighter. The shadows were gone. I gasped, struggling to find my bearings. Val? Where are you? I turned to see her beside me as the cavern opened into a vast landscape, bathed in sunlight. The trees swayed gently, the air fragrant with wildflowers blooming in the distance. I think we did it, Val breathed, astonishment coloring her voice. She looked around, disbelief and relief washing over her. But as I sensed the forest's tranquility, a lingering unease tugged at my mind. What about the not deer? I asked, the memory of its anguished roar echoing deep in my chest. I don't know, Val replied, eyes searching the horizon. Did it really find peace? The forest felt alive with whispers, a murmuring that danced through the air, leaving me wondering. I realized that the stories of the past might not be entirely erased. They just took a different form. Shadows lingered at the edges of understanding, tangled in the roots of the ancient trees. I suppose some things might never be fully understood. I reflected, the weight of that summer pressing on me. Would the forest forget what had transpired? Would the lost souls truly move on? Or would those shadows remain, simmering out of reach? As I glanced into the woods, there was something eternally enchanting and haunting about them. A reminder that darkness and light can coexist, whispering their secrets in a dance that may never fully fade. I think we need to live with these questions, Val remarked softly, each word a thread tying us to the forest. They remind us of the past and what we face. Together we stepped forward, leaving the cavern behind, knowing the summer had changed everything, but uncertain of what lay ahead. The shadows had ebbed for now, but I could still hear their whispers, promises bound with mystery, hidden beneath layers of light and darkness. And as the forest shimmered under the sun, it felt beautifully ambiguous, forever shrouded in wonder and uncertainty.